Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart. This is Lisa Granger. We are doing a special Flashback Favorites series where I'm revisiting some of the most meaningful conversations I had before this podcast officially began. Before we were on podcast platforms or multiple radio stations, A Woman's Heart aired as a Sunday morning show on my local station. And during that time, I had the honor of speaking with some truly incredible women. Today's flashback features one of those voices, Robyn Dykstra. Robyn is a dynamic speaker and a passionate encourager with a heart for Jesus and for women. She played a critical role in helping me launch this podcast, and I'll always be grateful for her belief, wisdom, and connections. In this conversation, we talk about her first devotional, Growing Your Faith, which has now become part of a 3-book series called The Seeds of Inspiration. Growing Your Faith, Nurturing Your Faith, and Flourishing in Your Faith. She's also the author of her powerful memoir, The Widow Wore Pink. This episode is full of timeless encouragement, and I can't wait for you to hear it. If you're enjoying this series, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating or review to help others discover A Woman's Heart. We are in for such a treat. We have had Robyn Dykstra with us before, and I am so excited to welcome Robyn back to our show. Welcome back, Robyn.
Oh my goodness, what a pleasure to be with you, Lisa.
Yes, I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Now, just in case someone was not privileged enough or hasn't been able to go back and listen to our previous conversation and they don't know who you are, just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm Robyn Dykstra, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And my claim to fame is that what I do for fun and for work is that I'm a retreat and conference speaker. I used to be a Playboy bunny and a club dancer, and Jesus saved my life. So now I travel all over the United States telling women about Jesus and reminding them that it's never too late for a fresh start. So I write about Jesus. I talk about Jesus. I'm pretty much a Jesus girl.
Okay. And yes, every time I hear more about your story, the more I am enthralled, interested, just so excited to know you and get to know you more. And your stories are always so funny and you're so down to earth and real. I love them. It's very easy to relate to. So thank you for being so relatable and authentic and fun as you share your stories and your life and everything that Jesus has done. And it's really impressive. I really like it.
Thank you. I hear that a lot. We'll get done with a retreat or a Christmas program or something, and there'll be some lady who comes by with the blood just drained out of her face saying, "Oh my gosh, you are so brave to tell that story." And what I always say is that it's so good to be on the other side of it. You just can't stop sharing it.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine how much better it is on the other side of that, having come through everything. And you mentioned that you write and you speak and you do all kinds of great things. The newest book that you have coming out, which congratulations, I think it was like number 1 on when it first released on Amazon. So congratulations, well deserved. It is called Growing Your Faith, and it's more of a devotional. So it's a little different than the other book that you wrote about some of your life stories. So tell us the story behind the story. Why did you feel led to do this particular book?
Well, I love telling stories. As you know, we spent some time together off the radio too. And I just love telling stories, and I believe in the power of story. I think that we should use the big things in our lives and the little things of lives where God intervenes or rescues or redeems, or just, when you miss another car by an eyelash, I think we need to proclaim the goodness of God in all that. And so I write a weekly devotional on my website every week, and suddenly I had a whole lot of gob of them, and I called an editor and I said, "Hey, could you help me put together some of the best ones so that we can package them up and distribute them more widely? Other people who may never get to the website would read these stories and find fresh legs, new hope, and find out she's not the only one who struggles with the comparison demons, or that she wasn't invited to something and it just hurt her feelings, or she lost her balance and ended up in the crazy tree.
Yep. That was one of my favorite stories. I haven't had a chance to read them all, but I picked a couple of them, and that was one I went, oh, I think I need to read that because I think I have a crazy tree back in my yard. That way it's really close and I don't have to go too far in order to climb up it. So.
Oh, you're funny. Yeah, one of the things I say, we all have these moments where we just lose our balance, and we know we're supposed to call in reinforcements. We know this. We're supposed to drop to our knees and pray, to call our best friend and have her tell us all the reasons that life isn't over because of whatever this thing is that happened. But gosh, the temptation is so strong just to sneak out the back door and climb that crazy tree and get up to the top and then think, how do I get down?
Yeah.
How do I get out of this mess? How do I overcome this moment? And that has been such a recurring theme for me. And what I know for sure is that if it's eating my lunch, or if it's something that happens in my life, it's likely to be happening in other people's lives. And so one of the ways that I get out of my crazy tree is just to proclaim the goodness of God, to remember to praise him by name or by characteristics, and then to remember what he's done in the past so that I have the courage to climb down, stand firm, and go forward.
Yeah, and you talked about remembering. I recently listened about the Hebrew word for remember is called zakar, and it's a spiritual practice that the Hebrews use of looking back and remembering so that they can move forward. So that whole idea from the Bible of remembering is not so much so that we can look back and stay stuck there and just ruminate on the past or everything bad. It's to look back and remember. Maybe it's, I don't know where to go next. So go back to the last point where you did know what you were supposed to do and sit there with God for a little bit and say, okay, God, this is where I did know where I was supposed to go. Now where do I go next? So we remember so that then we can go forward.
That is such a good word, Lisa. I love that. When I teach people how to tell their stories or conversational testimonies even, one of the things that pops up is that there's a Hebrew word called aduth, and a testimony means do it again. Oh. So your word, remember, and then again with the aduth, the Hebrew word for testimony, create the space for God to do it again. Remember what he did for your own self, and then tell somebody else about it so that their faith can be, fortified or emboldened.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm reminded on that is that people can dispute if you say, well, Jesus is alive, he's risen again. With Easter, you can dispute, well, I don't believe that, or dispute the facts, but it's hard to really argue with your own personal experience. How can they deny that this is what I walked through? This is what I felt. This is what I felt led to do. This is what Jesus did in my life. So whether or not you believe Lamentations, or whether or not you believe they crossed the Red Sea, or whether or not you wanted to argue those different stories, it's hard to dispute your own personal experiences. And I think that just lends itself more to what you're talking about with the power of story.
Indeed. You are so right that it's rare. Someone could be antagonistic toward the Bible or towards your own personal views on Jesus or your beliefs in Jesus, but it's very unlikely that someone would say, that did not happen to you. You can't, are you so nuts that you would believe that? You're so right. It's a powerful tool to plant seeds, because it's not our job to save anybody. Yeah. That's God's job. But it is our job to tell what he's been doing in our lives lately, and not just the original conversion stories, but the stories that are happening all the time, where he intervenes and steps in, and where we can sense his presence.
I like to call them God winks because
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I've never had a pillar of fire at night and a pillar of smoke by day experience, nor
Nope.
have I ever been to the ocean and had it part for me. So
Yep.
it's more of the little things of while I was cleaning the pool and just kind of had this image of it stays cleaner when I come out every single day, just like in my life.
Yeah.
If every day I just skim a little bit of that dirt off, skim a little bit of those little things off, it stays cleaner. And just like attitude is not a one-time one and done, it's a daily thing, just like bathing or eating. So my kids would complain when I wanted them to make their bed, I'm just going to get it dirty again. And my response was, well, then why bother eating lunch? You're just going to want to eat dinner.
That's good.
But it's just kind of those daily little God winks and those little things that I think we also need to be aware of that can mean so much to us.
Indeed, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. Stories are so powerful. And that's why I wrote Growing Your Faith, because I thought I had these beautiful God moments, these beautiful stories, mine and other people who gave me permission. Something that I said on stage resonated with what something they went through, and they tell me this story of not quite parting the Red Sea, but whatever the contemporary version of that would be, children, prodigal children coming home, diseases just obliterated, unbelievable stories of forgiveness. And I just thought it would make sense to me if they encourage my heart like this, it might encourage another woman's heart.
Yeah, I think it is. And that's also the power of community with our stories and getting together and sharing them. And I love how you said if you felt it, somebody else is bound to have felt it as well. And I know frequently when I'm going through something, I'm like, I cannot be the only one out there that has this need, this desire, this thing that I'm dealing with or struggling with. I can't be the only one because it can feel very isolating when we're going through something. And when someone hears your story of God doesn't give us more than we can handle, and they can read that, then they can find hope. And I would like for you to talk a little bit more about that one, because when I read it, I also thought that particular phrase I think can be so easily twisted or manipulated or abused in the church, and can sometimes, when we say that as a cliche, can almost do a little bit of damage more than it can help. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about that one and some of the things that you had to say about that phrase?
Yes, that's an important one. And the reason it's so important and the reason it hit the book was because the devil or culture or environment will plant lies in your head that you spend so much time with that you become accustomed to and accommodate and pretty soon believe. And one of those lies in my life was God won't give you more than you can handle. But that is not in the Bible. There is a verse in 1 Corinthians 10:13 that says, no temptation shall overcome you except which is common to man, but God is faithful and he won't let you be tested beyond what you can handle, or he will provide a way out so that you can endure it. What that means is not that God won't give you more than you can handle, but he will definitely allow more than we can handle. And for any number of reasons. One, so that we don't get so self-righteous that we remember we need God. It's very important for us not to be deceived into thinking that we can manage this life on our own.
Yeah.
And the other reason the story is in here is because we need to recognize the lies that pop up and replace them with truth. There's this shadow story that is sort of, did God really say? That's what the devil said to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Did he really say? And we start to think, well, maybe he did. So we replace the shadow story, the lie, with the truth that God will allow more than you can handle, so that your faith is strengthened, so that you remember that you are in need of a savior. And so that when you come through it on the other side, you have a fresh story or testimony to share with other people for the purpose of emboldening their faith. Not only is yours fortified, but when you share your stories of faith, like if you think about David and Goliath, David goes out and fights this giant named Goliath, and he has the courage to do that because of the victories he's already experienced with God. He has already killed a lion and a bear. And then he kills Goliath, and his victory so emboldens the rest of the army that they conquer the Philistines. And throughout the rest of his life, I mean, 3,000 years later, we're still talking about this kid who fortifies our faith to believe that nothing is impossible with God. And then as you tell your story, it glorifies the Lord. And it's just a win, 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 win.
It is. And I like how you say that he does allow more than we can handle, because I think sometimes I know there's been a lot of talk about mental health and the mental health crisis with everything that's been going on. And I know frequently I have listened to the lie of, well, if I were really enough of a Christian, if I prayed enough, or if I trusted God enough, or I believed, then I wouldn't have these bad thoughts. I wouldn't have these negative mindsets. I wouldn't be depressed. And so there's something, there's this, well, God wouldn't give me more than I can handle. And so if I'm feeling like this, I must not be being a good enough Christian. And that's a lie. And
that is so good. So not only do we question whether or not God is good, why would he give us all this? But we question whether or not we are good enough, because if we can't handle what's in our lives and God doesn't give us more than we can handle, then surely we must be inept or inadequate. Oh, yuck.
Yeah. And that's why I think we just kind of misuse and twist that out of what God really wanted, and that he would walk through it. He doesn't promise to take us out of the fire, but he'll walk through it with us, or he'll be there with us. No, he never intended us to be alone, either outside of community or on our own, or without him, and that he can handle it if we're going through a rough time, going, God, I don't like this. And it's okay to look for other resources.
Yeah, and that is so true. When the Lord says that he'll provide a way for you to stand up under it, that might not be just on your own. It might mean that you have to engage a professional, or that you have to engage with your community, or that you have to take a pill, or that you have to do some PT, physical therapy. I don't know what it would be, literally or figuratively, for you to get through it or to stand up under it, but also to get through it, to not try to do it on your own. I think your recurring theme of building community is so powerful, because we get embarrassed when we can't handle things, or when we lose our step, or when we feel like we're not enough, and we shrink back instead of pressing on. And it makes it even harder to get through whatever we're going through. And the temptation is, instead of climbing out of the pit, to start decorating it. And I don't think that the Lord wants us putting up curtains and laying down carpet in that pit. He wants us to get out, even if that means humbling ourselves and asking for his help and help from community.
Oh, yeah. I've told people, I said, I have a very comfortable comfort zone and a pit. I mean, it's got fluffy chairs and everything. It's got quite, it's really comfy there sometimes.
Oh, well, I'm sure you're not alone. I am sure you're not alone.
Oh, yes. And I throw confetti at the pity parties as well.
Yeah. I think I say someplace in that story that my temptation when things aren't going my way is to throw temper tantrums like Rumpelstiltskin, but that is no way to handle adversity either.
No, it's not really the healthiest way to handle that.
Yeah.
But then we lose it sometimes, and then we have to give ourselves mercy and trust that he will bring us back from it.
Yeah, and that brings up another story in the book, and that is not only believing that God can, but that he will.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a disconnect between, I know God is able, but I don't believe he will for me.
Yes.
And how to process that is, it can be kind of tricky. Have you ever gotten to that point where you think,
Oh,
I know God
absolutely.
can, but I don't know if he will?
Well, especially if we've had things in our life where we've said, God, I don't like this. I want it to go this way. I want this person healed, or I want this situation fixed in a certain way. And then it didn't happen.
Right.
That is really tough to reconcile at times.
It is. And not to let bitter roots grow down and take hold when you don't get your way, not to pick up an offense against God because he didn't do what we thought he was going to do or what we thought he should do. There's so many good lessons in this.
Yeah, there are definitely. Well, and you've walked through some of those situations where I'm sure you never would have wanted them to work out the way. But kudos to you for not letting the bitterness and the pain and the loss and all of that steal the joy and to steal your story of still loving Jesus. So hats off.
Right. Yeah. When my husband was missing, he took a routine flight from Michigan to Pennsylvania to pick up a friend of ours in our plane. We had a little bitty private plane, and he made a pilot error somewhere along the way. Of course, we didn't know, but he was missing for weeks. And I engaged all the stuff. I mean, I was praising God. I was proclaiming his goodness. I was declaring that he could. I was activating all my prayer partners. We were believing for a miracle, but as the days went by, other people's hope faltered, and I was just the cheerleader for God. And when Craig's plane was found, and he was found inside, he'd obviously miscalculated a landing and had lost control of the airplane, and the plane crashed under some leafy trees, so they didn't find it right away in this very rural area. But I didn't get what I wanted. I wanted that rescue, and I got a recovery. And it would have been so easy to stomp my feet and say, what is up with this, God? I don't understand. And I think most of us have a season where we think, God, you can. You are able, you could prevent this or intervene here. Why don't you? And there are some things we just won't know on this side of heaven, but it's okay to say, I hate the situation, but I love and trust you.
Yeah. And I think that's an important distinction. There's a lot of things about give praise and all things. And I'm like, I don't think God expects us to truly be happy about all of the things that happen. There are some things that happen to us that are horrible and tragic, but we can still be thankful that he's there and that we can come out of it with a lesson or a story on the other side. So I just think it's all about the perspective, which I thought about with the tree, there was a tree my grandparents had, which I was like, I'd just like to look out, and gave me a different perspective of things. And being able to look at things a little differently. And one of the other kind of going into one of the other stories about looking at things differently is when you talked about pruning. And the first thing I thought of was when Joyce Meyer goes, we're pruned if we do and we're pruned if we don't. So we're just, those kind of experiences really kind of prune off some of the stuff that we thought we needed and find out we don't. And then we go along and we get really full or whatever. And there's always a constant process of just kind of trimming down what we don't need so that we can become better and closer to him.
Right. And nobody would ask to go through those seasons, but they are important for not only our mental health, but our spiritual maturity. Yeah. Otherwise, we coast and we stay infants that we're supposed to grow in maturity so that when the winds come, they don't blow us like chaff.
Yeah, and that is one of the things when the difficult stories come along, they do add a particular depth because I can look at my faith when I was younger, and then I look at what it was afterwards, and you have to go to a different level once you start really experiencing more of life, whatever that may be, the good times, the difficult times, the tragic times, the over the moon joyful times. forces you to go to another level and not just think of God as a spiritual Santa Claus or something like that, and be able to then empathize with other people, because having gone through some of the experiences that I've gone through, I have a much different perspective, and I can come alongside somebody else and go, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to say some stupid things that other people have said because I know how stupid those things are.
How hard it was when you were going through it.
Yeah, because people will say really stupid things when you're going through dumb times.
Best intentions.
Yes, they do. They have every best intention, and you're just like, yeah, but that's not really helpful coming from outside. So it gives us another depth to be able to share our stories with people and help them.
Right. Stories are so important to share because they just connect us to one another. And I don't think you have to share all your deep, dark secrets with strangers, but I think it is important to share stories with one another.
As we've said, they're very, very powerful. Now, and I want to ask, how do you listen to feel which story to tell to somebody?
Yeah. Well, from the stage, I always use an illustration that leads to the conclusion that I want to take people to. So if the story doesn't support the destination of the talk, so to speak. But in conversation, I try to do more listening and engaging. So the most important thing is not to be a story topper. If you share a gut-wrenching story, that's just catastrophic, like your goldfish died, okay? And then I tell you, yeah, my husband died in a plane crash. I mean, that's just wrong. That's just so mean, because I'm not being sensitive to her pain. And of course, that's a big jump, but I try not to story top. I try to do more listening. And when I do share stories, I try to be sensitive to where the person is and what kind of a story they would need. And then drawing stories out from someone else to be an active listener, not to look at my phone, not to look at my watch, to keep asking, what happened next? And how did that make you feel? And what did your mother say? And then what happened? And just continue to let them roll with their stories is really important.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And I love all the other questions that you asked in drawing out their stories, because I think it is important to draw other people's stories out and give them the opportunity to tell their stories as well, because we can learn from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, if they want to learn more about these stories that we've spoken about, and we certainly did not cover them all, what is the best way for them to get your book and connect with you?
Well, to connect with me, just go to robyndykstra.com, and there is free devotional on the website. But if you want the whole collection or the first collection of these fun stories.
Yes, I noticed says book 1, so I assume there's going to be a book 2.
Yes, there is, and maybe even a book 3.
Woo-hoo.
If I could, I'd like to wink at you right now. But the best way to get them is on Amazon right now.
Okay.
So, Growing Your Faith on Amazon.com.
Okay, well, wonderful. And I will remind people it's Robyn with a Y, not an I. So they should be able to find you quicker that way.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yes, you are welcome. And Robyn, as always, it's such a pleasure and it's so much fun to be able to talk with you. And I just appreciate you so much and everything you do for me and for everyone else that you encounter. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're such a fun person. I love being on your show, and I really appreciate what you do to encourage my woman's heart every Sunday. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for joining me today on A Woman's Heart. I'm Lisa Granger. I hope you enjoyed this flashback favorite with Robyn Dykstra, and I pray her story and words of wisdom remind you that every story is powerful when it's in God's hands. If you're looking for a devotional to strengthen your walk or a powerful speaker for your next event, Robyn is a wonderful resource. Be sure to check out her Seeds of Inspiration series and her memoir, The Widow Wore Pink, on her website, which is in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend who could use a dose of faith and encouragement today. Until next time, have a blessed day.